Welcome to EdTech Spark. What's going on in the world of EdTech today? We're diving deep into the future of assessment, moving beyond those dreaded standardized tests.
Exactly. It's a topic that's constantly evolving, especially with how quickly technology is changing things. It's not just about replacing old methods, but really transforming how we understand learning and progress.
Right. And I think the biggest player in that transformation undeniably is AI. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it? I saw this article talking about how AI, even in EdTech, can break in subtle ways. It really resonated with some of the issues we've been skirting around.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one too. The article really highlighted the miracle, the grind, and the wall aspect of AI. The initial wow factor quickly fades when you start dealing with the practical limitations.
Totally. Like the Khanmigo example, Kristen DeSerbo was so transparent about the lesson plan generator challenges. It's easy to get caught up in the magic of AI, but then you realize the lesson plans aren't that great, are they?
Exactly. It produces something that looks good on the surface, but when you dig deeper, the objectives are just parroting standards, the warm-ups are off, and the answer keys. Forget about it. It really highlights the importance of human oversight.
It's that whole garbage in, garbage out principle, right? If Khanmigo doesn't have the right information, state standards, grade level specifics, prerequisite knowledge, it's just going to produce vague, inaccurate plans. It doesn't know everything.
And that's a huge issue. I mean, how do you even feed that kind of information to an AI? A human educator draws on years of experience, but AI is limited to what's already been documented and made publicly available. It's a massive undertaking to translate all that tacit knowledge into a digestible format.
It reminds me of the early days of learning analytics. Everyone was so excited about the data, but the software just didn't have enough context to make sense of it. The systems weren't talking to each other, the data was siloed. It was a mess.
And that brings up a really important point about interoperability. If different edtech tools can't communicate and share data seamlessly, we're just creating more work for teachers, not less. It's supposed to be a solution, but end up being another layer of complexity.
Precisely. And the article also touched on the problem of trying to do too much with a single prompt. The AI just couldn't remember all the instructions, leading to neglected or missing parts in the lesson plan.
That's fascinating. It's like its short-term memory is overloaded. And the solution, breaking the prompt into smaller chunks, makes perfect sense. But it also highlights the need for human intervention at each step. We can't just blindly trust the AI to deliver a perfect product.
It goes back to product market fit, right? You can't know what AI can realistically solve without understanding the user's specific needs. What imperfections are they willing to tolerate? How will they actually use the product? You need that human feedback loop.
Exactly. And that's where I think a lot of edtech solutions fall short. They're built in a vacuum without enough input from the teachers and students who will actually be using them. It's like, here's this cool technology, now figure out how to make it work.
Which reminds me of this other piece I read about Uchi.ru, this massive edtech platform in Eastern Europe. Their growth strategy was so unconventional. It involved dinosaurs in competitions.
Dinosaurs in competitions? Okay, you have my attention.
Yeah, they use these free online STEM and humanities Olympiads as a Trojan horse to get into schools. They were beautifully designed, aligned with the curriculum, and teachers used them to energize their classrooms. Parents were even printing certificates and taping them to the fridge.
That's actually genius. EdTech is such a multi-stakeholder field. You have district leaders, teachers, parents, and students to consider. If you can't meet everyone's expectations, you're dead in the water. A free, engaging Olympiad gets everyone on board.
Right? You can't just walk into a school with a paid course, but a free competition. That's a different story. It positions the platform as mission driven, not just a content provider, and it gives them valuable data across all regions.
It's a really smart way to generate leads and create word of mouth buzz. Once teachers see their students enjoying it, they explore the rest of the platform. Once parents see the certificates, they click through to the educational gains. It's a whole ecosystem.
And then there's Grisha the Dino, their mascot. Kids were sending them fan art and drawings. He became this bridge, making complex topics feel playful and accessible. They even launched an Instagram account for him.
Okay, that's next level. Using a mascot to build an emotional connection with kids, that's brilliant. It taps into their desire for recognition and fun, which releases dopamine and makes learning feel good.
Exactly. And teachers, they need tools they can trust and share. If you give them something that just works, something they don't have to explain or fix, they become your biggest advocates. It releases oxytocin and serotonin. They feel good about using it, and it makes them look good in front of their students.
And parents respond to pride and visible progress. A certificate on the fridge, a positive message from the teacher, those moments create an emotional connection. It's not about vanity, it's about knowing their child is growing and being seen. Endorphins and serotonin all around.
It's all about that product growth equation, right? Great product strategy and great go-to-market are inseparable. You need to orchestrate an ecosystem where the product delights, the users connect, and growth flows naturally from the experience.
Yeah, but I'm also a little cautious about gamification. Sometimes the focus on excitement and participation can overshadow the actual learning outcomes. Are kids really learning, or are they just chasing the next reward?
That's a valid concern. It's a fine line. You need to make learning engaging, but not at the expense of rigor and depth. It's about finding that balance.
It makes me think about the issue of assessment itself. If we're moving beyond standardized tests, what are we replacing them with? Are we just creating new, tech-enabled forms of assessment that still don't capture the full picture of a student's abilities?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think the key is to focus on formative assessment, ongoing feedback that informs instruction and helps students improve, not just a single high-stakes test that determines their fate.
And that requires a shift in mindset. It's not just about measuring what students know, but about understanding how they learn. What are their strengths and weaknesses? What are their individual learning styles? How can we personalize instruction to meet their needs?
That's where technology can really shine. AI-powered tools can analyze student work and provide personalized feedback at scale. They can identify learning gaps and recommend targeted interventions. They can even adapt the difficulty of the material based on the student's performance.
But again, we have to be careful. AI can be biased, and if we're not mindful of that, we could end up perpetuating existing inequalities. We need to ensure that these tools are fair, transparent, and equitable.
Absolutely. And we need to remember that technology is just a tool. It's not a replacement for good teaching. The most effective EdTech solutions are those that empower teachers to do what they do best, build relationships with students, inspire them to learn, and provide them with personalized support.
And it's not just about fancy technology. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the most effective. Think about digital portfolios, for example. They allow students to showcase their work, reflect on their learning, and demonstrate their growth over time.
I love that. It's so much more authentic than a standardized test. It allows students to demonstrate their creativity, their problem-solving skills, and their ability to communicate effectively.
And it involves them in the assessment process. They're not just passive recipients of grades, they're active participants in evaluating their own learning.
Which brings me to another point, the importance of student agency. We need to give students more control over their learning. Let them choose their own projects, set their own goals, and track their own progress.
And that requires a shift in the role of the teacher. They're no longer just lecturers, they're facilitators, coaches, and mentors. They guide students on their learning journey, provide them with support and resources, and help them develop the skills they need to succeed.
It's a much more personalized and student-centered approach to education, and it's one that I think is much more aligned with the needs of the 21st century.
But it also requires a lot of work. It requires teachers to be incredibly knowledgeable about their students, their subject matter, and the available technologies. It requires them to be flexible, adaptable, and constantly learning.
Which is why teacher training is so crucial. We need to invest in professional development that helps teachers integrate technology effectively into their classrooms. And we need to provide them with ongoing support and mentorship.
And that training needs to be practical and relevant. It's not enough to just show teachers how to use a particular piece of software. They need to understand how it can be used to enhance learning and improve student outcomes.
I saw that ViewSonic is expanding their Future School program in India, focusing on teacher training and classroom integration. They're providing schools with interactive flat panels, learning software, and structured teacher training. It's not just about the gadgets, it's about empowering teachers to use tech effectively.
That's great to hear, but I'm always a little worried about the potential for uneven distribution of resources. Are these programs reaching the schools that need them most? Are they providing equitable access to technology for all students?
That's a fair point. We need to ensure that EdTech solutions are accessible to all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background or geographic location. And that means addressing the digital divide and providing students with the devices and internet access they need to participate fully in the digital learning environment.
And it's not just about access to technology, it's about digital literacy. We need to teach students how to use technology safely, responsibly, and effectively. And we need to help them develop the critical thinking skills they need to evaluate information online.
Which brings us back to assessment. How do we assess students' digital literacy skills? How do we measure their ability to use technology to solve problems, collaborate with others, and create new knowledge?
Those are tough questions. I think we need to move beyond traditional assessments and focus on authentic tasks that require students to apply their digital literacy skills in real-world contexts.
Like creating a website, designing a mobile app, or producing a video. These types of projects allow students to demonstrate their understanding of technology and their ability to use it to achieve a specific goal.
And they also allow for more personalized and meaningful feedback. Teachers can assess students' work based on a variety of criteria, including their creativity, their technical skills, and their ability to communicate effectively.
It's a more holistic approach to assessment that takes into account the whole student, not just their ability to memorize facts and figures.
But it also requires a lot of time and effort on the part of the teacher. It's not easy to design and assess these types of projects, and it's not always clear how to align them with state standards and curriculum requirements.
Which is why we need to provide teachers with the resources and support they need to implement these types of assessments effectively. We need to give them the time to collaborate with their colleagues, share best practices, and develop common rubrics.
And we need to create a culture of innovation in our schools, one that encourages teachers to experiment with new assessment methods and to take risks. It's okay to fail, as long as we learn from our mistakes.
I agree completely. It's all about continuous improvement. We need to constantly be evaluating our assessment practices and making adjustments as needed. The goal is to create a system that is fair, accurate, and meaningful for all students.
And one that prepares them for the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. The world is changing rapidly, and we need to ensure that our students have the skills and knowledge they need to succeed in a digital global economy.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion. It's clear that the future of assessment is going to be very different from what we're used to. But I'm optimistic that we can create a system that is more personalized, more engaging, and more effective for all students.
Me too. It's going to require a lot of hard work and collaboration, but I think it's worth it. The potential to transform education is enormous.
And I think the key takeaway is that technology is a powerful tool, but it's not a magic bullet. It's just one piece of the puzzle. We need to focus on the pedagogy first and then find the right technology to support it.
Exactly. And we need to remember that the human element is still essential. Teachers, students, and parents all need to be actively involved in the assessment process. It's a team effort.
Well said. Thanks for joining me today. This has been EdTech Spark, and we'll see you next time with more insights into the world of education technology.
Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
Before we go, there was one other celebration point. I listened to a podcast about year-end celebrations. There are AI-powered field days now. That seems crazy, but also kids love it.
AI-powered field days, huh? Okay, I'm more reserved about that. I wonder if that promotes being behind a screen more than actually going out into a field day.
That's the concern, isn't it? It's a balance. Hopefully more and more EdTech tools can get this right. I think one of the biggest things is how they can listen to the user feedback. One thing that I have seen is how meditati.ro is listening to their users in Romania. They test, listen, and then adapt. It is working to make things better.
It comes down to solving a real problem first, rather than fitting technology into a new problem. Great point. Thanks.